So OpenLedger is a blockchain for AI. We want to focus to enable people to build AI models. What if I can go ahead and tell an agent, I want to go to this place, the agent would do it for me. It's going to happen in the next 6 months to 1 year time. People can start collecting data, build models, and have your model monetized.
How much can you expect to make? Those people who don't really care about data privacy, would they choose to monetize their data?
Yeah, so
what is the best use case scenario for these applied LLM cases?
That's actually a good question.
Ram, thanks for being here. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So for those who might not be too familiar with what OpenLedger is, what is OpenLedger?
So OpenLedger is a blockchain for AI. We want to focus to enable people to build AI models. Pretty much think of models to be like the brain behind all the AI systems out there, like agents and apps. And in order to, like humans, you want knowledge to be fed to humans, right? You want them to know more about a particular subject for them to become a specialized person in that sector. Very similarly for AI, you need to provide knowledge to that system, right? You need to provide data sets, basically. AI learns by consuming data. AI models today, the ones that we see, OpenAI and all other models, they're very generic because they're trained on internet data, right? That's the most easiest access of data set that is there. So when you start training an AI model with internet data, it has a very generalized knowledge about the world. Think of a kid who just always Google searches and learns, right? He will just have a basic knowledge about the world, or he will like random stuff about the world, he would know about it. But it's not an expert in a particular field, right? But LLMs have to be specialized for specific reasons and specific use cases, right? And that's what OpenLedger focuses on. We want to enable people to build AI, which is very specialized, use an existing AI system, a larger language model, add more data sets to that, add more knowledge, and make it specialized for a particular sector. So think of larger language model to be like an operating system, and specialized models are like apps on top of them. And that is what OpenLedger enables. We want to enable people to collect data on top of us, build these specialized models, specialized AI, and then as part of the system, we want to make sure that anyone who provides this knowledge, this data, has to be rewarded as well. That's a very key aspect. Only then you would have people contributing data to that. So we are enabling people to contribute data and then rewarding them back for the data as well. And all of this happens in our platform, and we provide a blockchain for you to track this on the blockchain as well. And that's simply what is OpenLedger. And I'm a core contributor because we want to be contributors to this protocol. We've been building in this space for quite some time, like right from 2017. Started as a blockchain R&D company and machine learning as well. We've worked with Walmart, we've worked with Sony, we've worked with larger brands, and we've made close to about $40 million in revenue. And about 200 people across the globe were employed by us. And OpenLedger was sort of like an incubation. We wanted to contribute to the protocol as core contributors and then have the developers take it much forward and run it as a protocol that is open source, which is run by the people, not have as a centralized platform. So that thesis has to be passed on from day one, and that's why we all call ourselves to be like the core contributors. And that's sort of like, that's what is OpenLedger, and that's what we do.
The idea of effectively democratizing the data collection or sourcing, I would say, is an interesting one because I guess my question initially is, do people even realize how important the data collection aspect is to AI? Because the basic level of understanding for most people, like, oh, I'm using my ChatGPT to ask some basic questions, right? And for most people, it's pretty good. But what is the main problem with like these closed-sourced LLMs and their limitations?
Yeah. So I would like to talk more about the internet data we spoke about, right? All of these LLMs are trained on internet data. And where does internet data come from? It's from the data set that is contributed by us, on the internet. It's our conversation that we had in the internet. It was the blog that was written by a blogger, or it was a video that was uploaded by, let's say, you guys, right? All of that data has been consumed by these larger language models. Let's just take a look at it. Right? In 2016, there was about survey about data value, like just valuable data sets across the globe. And the data economy itself was valued to be about $11 trillion. Let's assume about 0.5 of that is like internet data. That's about $500 billion. So about $500 billion has been consumed by large language models. Just assume that.
Did they have permission to scrape and all that stuff?
So the thing is, the laws are very, in the lines. It's not like really out there. Like we don't know like what really can be done. You can scrape the internet, but it comes down to each one's property, each website, what they decide on, like whether they can allow that or not. Most of the scraping is done by larger firms out there. And they have so much server power that you can't just really stop them, right, from doing it. They're just going to attack you with multiple modes. So there is no like proper law with that, right? What can be done and cannot be done. It comes down to that particular company and what they decide to do with that. So let's say about $500 billion, about $500 billion has been taken away from people. You've not been rewarded, right? That's fine. You can't do anything about it. It's on the internet. It's public. We can't claim that. You made it public, right? So the larger language models can go ahead and consume that because you made it public. But there is a way for us to monetize our data while AI is becoming much more useful, much more specialized. Like for example, as we spoke about, a model where someone is building for finance, or a model where someone is building for a particular programming language, like let's say Solidity, which is an Ethereum programming language. It's a well-known programming language in Web3. For that, there is not many data sets that is available. It's among developers, right? They have the knowledge about Solidity. They have the documentations for it. They have the code bases for it. They could contribute code, describe the code, label the code. And then if they do that and a model uses that, they could get rewarded for it, right? So building the data economy is possible in the upcoming AI boom that's about to happen. Think of this like how we started monetizing our content on social media. Very similarly for AI, we need to start monetizing our data. It might not happen with the common people, but it's sure about to happen with the engineers and people who are in the tech industry initially. And then it will migrate to more of skilled people, like someone knows very well about art, someone is good in finance, someone is good in healthcare, someone is good in a particular subject about a language. They can go ahead and start contributing and monetizing themselves. It's a new way to monetize. We all did not know how to monetize ourselves on the internet. We learned it. We started writing blogs and videos and stuff like that. So like this, we would also be enabled to monetize ourselves for AI. I think it's very much needed because if you're not doing that, let's say as a media company or a smaller organization, if you're not indexing to AI, you index to the web. That's why people got business. You need to start indexing to the AI so that you can actually make revenue. You can earn. And that's what we want to enable. We want to make sure that businesses, smaller businesses, individuals, skilled people can go ahead and monetize the knowledge that they have and they get rewarded for that. And I think there is a huge need for it. The existing large language models, they don't really concentrate on this because they can't do it all. They can build a larger system which has knowledge. We have to build something which is more specialized and then own that by ourselves. And that's what we want to enable.
So I imagine, though, that guys like Google, OpenAI, they have so much money. And I mean, I do hear that they are themselves trying to get all these expert opinions, and then they try to improve their model to the best they can. But you're saying that there's a limit to that.
There is a limit to that. They would still keep on exploring that because we can't get access to everything, right? Think of this, right? If US was built by one single government, like where they built the entire the country by themselves, it would have not been what it is today, right? They went ahead and kind of decentralized this overall operation. They saw what happened in the Europe. Everything was run by the government, right? The railway stations, the buildings, all of the buildings were built by them, but it was not scalable, right? And US wanted to expand. And what they decided, let the people do that. Let us empower people to do that. And US was built by individuals and organizations, and they own pretty much every part of the country. So in order to enable scalability, you need to decentralize, right? In that way you would be able to enable people to come forward and contribute something. You can't, as a single organization, just go ahead and start to collect everything. But people will still try that. Like, for example, Meta is investing about $14 billion into Scale AI, right? Scale AI is one of the largest data foundries out there. They're the reasons why OpenAI is today. We don't know them because they're behind the scenes. Now, Scale AI is focusing towards collecting a lot of these data sets, which are from skilled people, which are from experts, right? Meta wants access to that, right? Meta wants to access that super intelligence. And that's one of the reasons why they're investing in that firm. So the need for data is increasing day by day. But there is always a lot of portions that is left to cover. And one way we are trying to solve is that, sure, there could be like Scale and all these organizations, which is going to go ahead and collect your data. They're going to pay for you, but you're going to get paid just once. But what if we provide a decentralized way for you to like contribute something and constantly earn? We can create that gig economy. This is the other way of solving the data problem. And like us, a couple of people are trying it out. Like Hugging Face is one organization which is trying it out, which is, it's a centralized platform. It's open source, but it's not monetizable, right? OpenLedger wants to enable people to contribute data as an open source, but still be able to monetize that so that we can solve the data problem using decentralization. As simple as that.
So let's say I am one of those average users who want to contribute whatever data I have to your platform and then make money off it or something. How do you do that? Like, so what does the practical steps look like? Like, do I go to a website or like a mobile app that I can like, I don't know, what do I record myself? Do I like provide answers? How do you contribute data?
Yeah. So what we are building right now is like sort of like a foundation of where this could expand much more larger, right? The current foundation enables model developers to come up with an idea of the model that they want to build, a specialized model. Some kind of example, let's talk about Solidity again. They want to build a model for a new programming language, which is like just about a decade old. Not many people have used it, but knowledge is among people who are like spread across the globe. And they want to bring all of them together to contribute. And what they would do is basically start a data net on top of OpenLedger, which is like a dashboard with information to feed in a website where users are encouraged, invited to contribute to this dashboard. So it starts here, and then the data is collected, and then it's then converted into the AI model. It's basically fine-tuned on top of an AI model, and then the AI model gets generated out of that. Right? There's a no-code platform and stuff.
So there's a leader of a let's say community, and you want to build a certain model. That is on top of not like OpenAI, ChatGPT, but like open source model that's available on Hugging Face, which for people don't know is, I mean, you can probably explain it better than me what Hugging Face is. But I understand it's a platform.
Where you can get access to data and models and stuff. So they could bring it from Hugging Face, or they could, all these models are available on OpenLedger as well. You could choose any of these open source model. And as you rightly told, think of the model developer to be like a community leader who amasses people to come forward and contribute data and knowledge. And then this data is then fine-tuned to a model. And then the model is built. Right? Basically, you're adding more information to an existing model which has knowledge and making that model specialized. It's like I'm taking an undergrad and then I'm having them study a particular subject and making them an expert in that subject, right? Very similarly, that's what they do with the model. Today, we start with the dashboard in a website, but then that can expand onto an app. That can expand onto another AI system also where people can like contribute knowledge. So what we've built is basically like a framework or a protocol on which all of these changes can be done, right? Now we are laying a foundation where people can start collecting data, build models, and then reward them. How they do that, how they collect data, how they reward, all of this is configurable. All of this can be played around. But we are starting here so that we can start a revolution. We can have more and more people adopt to this. And there should be a way for people to use a system, right? And we are creating that way. And then it's all the creative ways they can use it and expand it much further as well.
So, so I totally see in theory how this could work, which sounds very exciting. It's almost like a decentralized and monetizable blockchain equivalent of Hugging Face,
Yeah, you
where
can see that,
people can see how their data is being contributed to this particular model, and then whenever other users use that model, like you can earn money or something.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
realistically, I guess this is kind of a theoretical question, but how much can you expect to make by contributing? I guess every value is different.
Yeah.
But how much money could you potentially make as opposed to, an example could be you're a content creator and you would just want to make a video on TikTok versus YouTube, but TikTok doesn't really pay you unless you go get big and you get sponsorship or something like that. Whereas on YouTube, as long as you cross a certain, like a view threshold or something, watch time, they start paying you, right?
Yeah.
So like, obviously there are like Mr. Beast who just makes gazillion dollars off YouTube.
Yeah.
But for an average contributor, how much money can you make off that?
It depends. It comes down to more of how the adoption of the model is, right? But initially, when we all contributed to writing blogs or videos and uploading videos, we never knew that we were going to get paid so much, right? It was just an experiment. We just wanted to contribute knowledge. We wanted to get recognition. Then after a point of time, when a lot of people started using the internet, a lot of people started consuming. Now, blogging and making money out of that is a thing, right? It has become a profession. I would say only over the last 3 to 4 years time, right? So very similarly in AI as well. I don't think we can expect this to be like an immediate, gig to be there from like day one.
Right.
What you're laying is sort of like an infra where this can be enabled. We're starting a momentum. People would first start to collect data sets and like knowledge for building models, experimenting with that. And we've seen people not worrying about monetizing, just contributing, like just open source contributing, so that they can contribute and they can get recognized for that. And they can know that better AI systems are being built. But after, you see this AI being launched and a lot of people start to consume these AI models, and once they start to make revenue, you would start earning from that. It's not going to be initially a lot of money, right? Probably a couple of $1,000, right? Initially.
That sounds like a lot still.
Yeah. I'm saying over a period of time.
Right.
So when that happens is when, we would see more and more of this. Like what really we want to make sure is that we want to initially curate useful models to be built on top of us, right? It's sort of like making sure that there's not like random number of people just coming over and then having random ideas to do it. And we don't want to do it ourselves also. We want the community to govern that. That's why if someone has an idea to build an AI model on OpenLedger, once we go mainnet and the product is out, we want to make sure the community can vote on which model, which AI system can be launched and which one is interesting, right? Post the community vote is when they can start collecting data. And that's when they start to build the model and monetize that. So you now have like a curated models which the community believes is useful, which can be monetized. Those are the ones who are collecting data from you. So the potential of them making revenue and you getting paid for it is now much better than just randomly contributing to like some AI thoughts and ideas that are there. So I guess that's one way we start to monetize, but we would see there would be a certain longer period of growth here. I would not expect this to happen like overnight. This is a journey for the next at least 5 to 10 years, right? We're just laying foundations over here.
Personally, though, I understand that you want to leave the decision to the community and they vote themselves on what will be the best use case of the specific type of new, much improved LLM model that's way better in specific domains. Yeah. I get that.
Yeah.
But in your personal opinion, what is sort of like the best use case scenario for these applied LLM cases? Is it finance? Is it possibly legal?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of also startups and companies that are doing this as a non-blockchain idea. They just want to, we'll just gather the experts ourselves. And they get funded like, Harvey, whatever. So how do you compete with that type of model?
Yeah, so that's actually a good question. And we've been like on this over the last year or so, just figuring out use cases, right? And what we've found is that there is these use cases where you need knowledge and like data from people across the globe, right?
Like what,
for example, I'll give you one use case. There's a bunch of doctors who are building a model on top of this, which is around sleep data, right? So just think of what they're trying to do is basically collect sleep data sets from people across the globe, across races, across various regions, and across various dynamics, right?
So Apple Watch.
You can just go ahead and contribute your Whoop or any smartwatch that you have.
Right.
The sleep data from that can just be contributed to this platform.
Okay.
And as they collect the sleep data, they also ask you to submit your body vitals, right? So you're submitting your body vitals almost like every 2 weeks or so, and then they also collect your sleep data. Now they try to correlate your sleep with your body vitals, and they figure out a pattern, right? Now they built an AI model, they're in the process of building that, where once the model is ready, you can have anyone just upload their sleep information for the day, and they would ask you to upload over a week's time, and then they would be able to tell what might be the symptoms of diseases you might have, what potential risks that you have in your lifestyle. So they could predict that. And how they do that is because they've collected large amount of data sets of sleep data and body vitals. They correlate that, and based on that, they have this predictive analysis. And this is a model that they are building on top of us, where they need these data sets to be across the globe. But naturally, it has to be decentralized. It has to be unbiased. It has to have various races from within various parts of the world. And they can't do this using a centralized platform, right? You simply cannot. They don't have the amount of the biases and differences among any kind of centralized platform. And they wanted to use us because naturally this enables them to have a decentralized data, because people in our platform, we have people across South Korea to China to US to Brazil. And when they start collecting these data sets, they're pretty much collecting from across the globe.
I guess what you're implicitly getting at here is that whatever like a centralized apps that are being built in the US, it's very like a US specific Western type of data. They don't have a way to collect all these globalized Asian stuff as well, right?
Exactly. It's natural. That's how it will work. Because when you're building in a particular region, you tend to collect data, you tend to build for that particular region. Right? We've seen this happen with most of the apps, right? Most of the internet apps today are built within Western mindset, right? And that's how they're designed, that's how they're built. But AI is going to be a global thing. It's going to be like an electricity, right? So if
that's true. Everybody uses electricity.
See, today, internet is like electricity, right? Today morning, I was actually trying to get over here, and then all of a sudden, my data ran out. And I panicked. I almost had like a panic attack because I'm in a country where I'm not very familiar with. I love South Korea. I love the people.
But they don't speak English.
And I have to figure out ways to come over here, right? I can't just go down and get a taxi. And so think of that. When AI is there, this is going to be like 10x, right? It's going to be much bigger. And you don't want to have an AI system which is centralized and which is biased to a particular region, right? You want to have it as decentralized as possible. And it's like a public good. Right. And in that case, when people want to build these unique systems, they want to collect data which is decentralized. Right. And like think about another use case. So we spoke about healthcare.
And you could sell that to like healthcare service providers or something. That's how you make money.
Exactly.
Then you can distribute to
That's the reason these doctors want to build this, because they know that this can be monetized and they can go ahead and actually sell it to a lot of healthcare systems. And that can flow back to the data contributors. And there is a team which wants to build a model around culture, right? If you ask questions to ChatGPT about, some problems you might have within your family, right? It would actually probably give you some advice, but it'll be very westernized, right? I don't think that's going to be useful for a nation. Even though I've been living in the US, my culture is still India, right? So having a a chat GPT, which is want to give you an advice for more on a Western mindset, is not so useful, right? So the team which is building a model which has like culture and knowledge about the world and knowledge about each region and stuff like that. So wherever there is a need for data to be decentralized, where you can get data from various parts of the world and train a model better, that's a natural use case that we've been starting to see, right? And also there has been people who are trying to get data for like very unique use cases, and which is among people in pockets across the globe, right? Like where the Solidity example I told you, right? There is a team which is building about a knowledge for Web3, like sort of like a knowledge hub, where they're collecting data sets from people across various parts of the world, contributing knowledge about Web3, like the sentiments that they've seen over the last 10 years. So wherever, you want data to be decentralized and data is rare and it's at pockets and you want to collect all of them together, that's where you can start to use a platform like us. It becomes much more useful.
So do you imagine that ultimately whatever products or apps, applications that comes as a result of that community contribution, whatever that gets built as a specialized model, do you imagine that to be more of a B2B product or like a B2C consumer?
It could be both.
Right.
It definitely could be both, because the culture model is going to be more of a consumer product, right? Where people actually ask questions to it and query it. The model for Solidity is more of a B2B. It could be used by organizations. So it just comes down, or it could be also be B2C, right? Developers can go ahead and use that. It comes down to what they're really building. It could be any different use cases.
I only asked it because ultimately users have to pay to use that type of product. And then people, from experience, number one, I find that people don't really tend to pay for entertainment. They tend to pay for like an expert opinion or something that really helps with in their everyday lives, whether it's productivity tools, whatnot. And one thing I always realize as part of doing Asian Boss as well, that culture is not exactly super monetizable, because culture itself is not a specific vertical or domain expertise. It just I agree. Culture is a very important as an infrastructure, or like you obviously want to understand how people react to different situations, but itself is not really a product, right?
It's not a product, but like, for example, like what is social media, right? Is this culture exchange across the globe, right? If we had to pay for social media, we might have, right? But
do you think that people would have paid for
think
Instagram?
Of this, right? Facebook kind of like changed the whole aspect, where they didn't want to monetize because they wanted to get a large group of people to start using it. But ChatGPT kind of changed it. If they want, they would have gone probably like free. But they went ahead and decided to charge for it because they wanted to build a different business model on itself. And then every AI that followed that,
it's all subscription model.
Right? And now paying for AI is not something new, right? We are all used to it, right? Consumer apps will use AI. They will pay for it and give it for us for free. But still, if we want to use another AI system, we don't mind paying for it, right? We don't mind paying additional if Google is going to come back to say that if you want to use Google Docs, which is like without AI, this is your cost and this is the cost with AI, then you would start paying for that as well, right? So it comes down to like how you monetize a business. I think Facebook really changed this because they had a different business model.
Right.
With AI, things could change much differently.
It's interesting. So you think that AI, like the general consumer sentiment is that they don't mind paying for subscriptions because it's AI.
Because you're going to get knowledge, right? You get so much outdone with ChatGPT compared to what I don't use like Google search anymore. I just use
same here. Nobody, who uses Google search these days?
Because I have a much efficient answer.
Right.
And what I also start to think is that the economy of the world itself has become much larger, right? People are now used to spending. The generation before us, a mom and dad, they had a different world. Everyone was trying to get a job. Getting a job itself was a big deal. And if they actually got a job, they stuck for it for years because the economy was not so great, right? Most of various countries across the globe, it was a growing economy. But now, all of us are much better in terms of what our previous generations were. We have a lot of income to spend around for luxury. We don't mind spending for knowledge. And I guess we are seeing an era where people will be moving away from the freemium to more like paid use cases, where if they see value, they're going to pay for it, right? And I would see that happening with AI.
Interesting.
And that's one of the reasons why I believe that monetizing yourself for contributing knowledge to AI is important, because all of these AI systems will make revenue. If they're going to make revenue out of your data, you might as well also make a piece of that. And this is the right time to get into this. Right? After a point of time, there's so much data that's been already collected and useful. No longer your data is actually useful for these AI systems. Right? We are at this moment where there was a ChatGPT era that happened, where it was initially launched, there was internet data that was consumed, and all the internet companies and the news media, they all kind of like had a moment where they realized, oh shit, our data is being used and we're not getting monetized for it.
Am I right in interpreting that everything that's been scraped that is able to be scraped has been scraped? Like they've literally got every internet data.
Pretty much every part of, if you go to Hugging Face, like you could find like 100 different copies of the refined web. This is basically the entire internet that has been scraped. What is not scraped is obviously the new data that is flowing onto the internet, and people have ways to scrape that as well. Sure, you could go ahead and put blockers to stop that, but that's very little data set, right? Just sort of like newly known information, which they don't have to escape from the internet. AI systems are now much better. Like OpenAI can just go ahead and have crawlers go around, and they have basically MCPs to go around, do Google search and get the information of the current thing that's happening and then give you an answer. So whatever there is there in the internet has been consumed already. We've gone past that. Now we have knowledge which is not being consumed because it's among people. There's a way to monetize.
So basically the type of knowledge that's not available on the internet because people don't want to post about it or make videos about it. But why would they? So for example, let's say there's a person who's like really has an interesting domain expertise, but that person is decidedly anti-internet. That they don't want to make a YouTube video about it. They don't want to write a blog post.
You can't do anything about it. That never can be, because if they didn't want to post to the internet, they didn't want to monetize that. Exactly. They never want to monetize.
Right. So because then I'm having a trouble understanding why would they bypass all the YouTube stuff, go straight to uploading stuff on the data infrastructure.
I don't think they would do that. But there are few people who would want to monetize that, right? For example, you're good at what you do because you have a certain way of asking questions. You have a certain way of doing this, your own knowledge of how to like make videos. You know how to do this. You might not want to pass on this information to others, right? You might want to have it because it's your secret sauce. There are people who actually sell courses on this, how to make YouTube videos,
right?
Because they're open to do that, because they want to monetize that knowledge as well,
right.
So it comes down to the individual, the knowledge. It could be even an organization. Certain organizations monetize their data. They have so much information that they've gathered from the market. They would want to monetize that. They still do that. There are certain organizations which keep them as a trade secret, right? So what we encourage is whoever wants to monetize the data. They have knowledge. They have data sets. They want to monetize that. They want to earn that additional buck. They can go ahead and use our platform. And that's simply what we are encouraging. And did it happen in the internet? I'm sure it's going to happen for AI as well.
I kind of want to get your thoughts on this. I'm talking about like the average person on the street, right? Let's be fair. We talked about like a data privacy or importance of data. Like people on the street, do they really care? You know, like they're just like, oh, just use my data. I just want to mindlessly scroll my TikTok and everything.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's no point in talking about like really data privacy, because people tend to focus more on convenience than privacy.
Exactly, yeah. They just want things to work, right?
Yes. There is a certain group of people, like younger generations, who are like start to understand data privacy much better because of the knowledge. They've been on the internet so much. It's sort of like a part of their life. And you want to make sure that your life is a bit private always, right? But if you come down, right, you don't need, what we're trying to sell over here is not privacy. What we're trying to say is that you can monetize whatever you have.
So the point I was getting at is that those people who don't really care about data privacy, period,
Sure.
Would they choose to monetize their data Or do they just want to hang out and just become a famous content creator or something, right?
Yeah.
Maybe
no,
we're
but
talking
everyone
about
cares about money, right? We don't mind earning, right? If you go down to the overall point is that everyone wants to earn and make a living, right? I'm not going to say that OpenLedger is going to make you a living, but OpenLedger is going to maybe provide an additional bar, right?
that would be
There could
nice.
be one platform that could do that.
Yeah.
There are 100 platforms out there which start doing this, right? So that's how YouTube started. They wanted to enable people to come together, contribute something, and enrich the internet with videos. And then, as a damage to that, as a collateral damage to that, you also get rewarded. YouTube was absolutely useless when monetization was not there, right? Once they started bringing the partner program, once they started actually enabling people to get monetized,
Yeah, the quality just went
quality
crazy.
just went up.
Yeah.
You had organizations like media organizations come forward and contribute their content as well, because now they know they can monetize it.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to happen with AI as well. If you enable people to monetize the data, users will come forward and contribute, monetize themselves. You would also see smaller enterprises which have knowledge, which will come forward and monetize their data as well. So that's what we're trying to create here. There is a need for it. There is a need for data. All the AI companies would love to pay for it. Model developers would love to pay for it. Anyone who wants to leverage AI would love to pay for it. And data is among people, data is among smaller organizations. We are creating a way where all of these two guys can just talk to each other and like contribute data and get paid for it. As simple as that. So we're just being a bridge between these two group of people. And it's just starting to grow, right? About 2 years back, it was not so important, right? Data was, not many people spoke about data and AI, right? The scale was just the only company out there slowly building behind and providing this infra. But now everyone is all about data because they know the importance of it.
But even Scale AI was mainly just scraping things off.
Scale
and
was
then,
not majorly scraping. They were majorly into data labeling, right? Because you can get the scraped internet data from various other organizations, right? What you can just do is go ahead and take that scraped data. The scraped data is not so useful for an AI, right? It's like if you just
it's
give
all
me,
about structuring, right?
it's not structured. As a human, if you just throw random pictures and ask me to just read all of them and understand, I'm just going to hallucinate. I'm just going to say random things. That's how AI will behave. But if you actually label and show me this is what it is and educate me, then I'm going to be much better. And that's what Scale did, right? It just labeled data, so it's easier for AI to understand. But now we've passed that. AI has an understanding of the world. What it needs is more specialized knowledge. What it needs is more giving aspect of how certain things work, giving it that additional information which is missed. And we are at the moment where apps will start to use AI, right? When apps start to use AI, all these apps are unique, right? There's one app for food delivery, there's one app for healthcare, one app for finance and stuff. When they start to use them, they cannot use the generic models out there. They need to have like specialized models. They need to have models which are very unique. And that's what we want to enable as well.
I'm quite personally curious about sort of like what's beyond the specialized knowledge realm of what data can provide. So for example, because we mainly work in videos,
Yeah.
I'm now familiar with things like multimodal training, where things are not just image and text, but it's more like a video data, right? Because I understand that multimodal training is very expensive, and then we can get into discussion about how AI agents needs to be trained, which I think goes way beyond LLM.
Yeah.
But how far do you see, like, where is sort of like that upper ceiling of LLM where even the knowledge gets better and better and better? But then I feel like when we start talking about agents, we have to now start even thinking about, like you said, cultural difference or human emotion, like cultural awareness and things like that. So how do you see that evolving? Where are we right now? And then how far are we away from entering into that agent era?
Yeah. So like if you think like larger languages models are like the brain behind this, agents are like the body, right? They're the ones who take the outcome and come in. Like for example, I would consider any app or infra that leverages AI as an agent. Like for example, a lot of people would say that Tesla is an agent, right? because it uses an AI, it takes you from point A to point B, and it makes its own decisions, and it leverages the AI system that it has to do all of this, right? That's an agent. Very similarly, most of the systems that you would start to use will be agents. The apps would turn out to become agents. Today I was like, again, trying to book my flight to out of Seoul to Cannes and traveling there for ECC, and I was like trying to figure out like the best flight, and it just took about 30 minutes for me to do that, and which is not a productivity time. The thing is,
Yeah.
what if I can go ahead and tell an agent I want to go to this place, but I want to go at this time and this particular place and stuff like that? The agent would do it for me, right? It's a very simple task. I'm sure it's going to happen. It's going to happen in the next 6 months to 1 year time.
Oh, that soon.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like, because all of these consumer apps that we're so used to will start to use AI and then make things much more easier, right? Why do I have to press buttons? Why do I have to do that? The reason you use Perplexity more than Google search, because it's so comprehensive. I don't need to scroll through like 5-6 pages for me to get an answer. You're going to get an answer within just one click of a button. You want that to happen for your apps as well. Apps are our everyday use cases for us. It's like how internet happened and it turned our phones into much more automated and much more connected. Apps are our most use cases, so AI will get into that. So I think agents will be basically apps that we will interact with, and it'll replace most of the things that we do.
Can you create your own agents?
I think that should be possible. It comes down to like how people would want to see it, right? An agent within an app, right, where I have my agent to behave the way I want, right? I think that will become very popular. So basically, customizable in your own way of agents, personalized agents will be a thing.
So using OpenLedger platform, can anybody build their own agents as well?
OpenLedger would focus more on the AI model side.
Right.
And we have people who are building frameworks which are integrated to OpenLedger where these agents can be built, right? We want to be in the model layer. We want to focus on that because better models, better AI means just better agents. Right?
I see.
And
that's the foundation.
It's a foundation. Yeah, exactly. So building that foundation is very important. Someone has to do that. We don't want to be deviated by focusing more on agents and apps. And there's a lot of people who are doing that. A lot of our friends in the ecosystem are building agent companies. All of those frameworks are integrated to a platform. So you can use OpenLedger as a knowledge base to build better AI and then have apps, agents leverage them. And I think that's the right way to do this. We are focused to enable more and more AI systems. More use cases will come from people who build apps. They're the ones who would pay for these AI systems. And we want to make sure that we optimize this part very well.
So if I can sort of describe that process. So at the very fundamental infrastructure layer, there's the data that leads to models, whether it's LLM, open source closer, that leads to agents.
Yeah.
And then after that, it'll be some sort of AGI or something, right?
So AGI is, I think, everyone has a definition of AGI, which is different. Like in terms of I think AGI will not be one whole thing that will be achieved. It'll be various success that we would have at different fields. Like for example, a lot of people will think that autonomous vehicles have already achieved AGI because they just think by themselves when they just go around, right? I would say they're about 60-70% towards AGI for autonomous vehicles. AGI is the definition for that keeps on changing.
I see.
So let's see where that goes. I think, but there is some time for it. Yeah.
Agents could also lead to some sort of a physical robots as well, right?
Yes, of course, and I think we would see more of that, especially in regions where there's very less population, and you would want help.
Yeah.
I would
countries like Korea, Japan,
yes,
China, maybe in the future.
Because again, it helps us be much more productive. It also helps in a lot of important things as part of our life, right? We spend a lot of time actually doing physical things. We don't have to do it. I think robots could change that, where they're much more smarter than the existing ones, which are hardwired, right? I would definitely see physical AI being one of the most important aspects of our lives. Yeah.
So to LLM, just coming back to the quality of the data question, how important is not just the technical domain expertise and knowledge, but also things like a human understanding, emotional intelligence, cultural awareness. How important is that to develop a better model, or even beyond? Is it more useful for agents, for example?
Yeah. So like, for example, it comes down to like, what is the use case it is?
It's all about the use case,
Use
of
cases,
course.
right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if it's going to be an agent where you're going to talk about, like a physio, a
Like a
psychologist,
counseling. Yeah,
counseling or
yeah, yeah, yeah,
something like that, you don't want them to be very autistic, right? You don't want it to give you like a
yeah,
answer
yeah,
which is
yeah.
not like non-emotional, right?
Actually, I heard that description before. Like right now, the current version of LLM is like a super autistic
Yes.
genius.
Yeah. I think Andresh also spoke about that in his recent
Oh, okay,
speech as
okay,
well.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so that has got us a thing. So I think it is like that, right? It's very non-emotional, and we can't do anything about it. Like when you Google search, the information that we get is written by humans, so it would be emotional, right? You would be able to relate it to better.
Right, right.
But an AI, even though it learns from that, it's going to interpret that and give a context to it and give you an answer which is very non-emotional, right? It could try to be emotional, but you would know that it's not like really doing well. So providing that human intelligence, like knowledge, context to it, is very important, and it comes down to the use cases that are being built.
So it's not, you got to have like a specific, amazing counseling ad that everybody talks about. Oh my God, he really understands me, regardless of which country that I'm from or something. Then it just goes like crazy popular app. And then.
So imagine the amount of data that it might need for that, right? Imagine the amount of cultural knowledge and like unbiased information that it would need. So you can't just get that by scraping out of the internet. It's among people.
Yeah.
And like these, there could be 100 different use cases that will come in, and there is always this need for like decentralized and open and data which is available from outside.
So you have all of this in mind, even the human and emotional intelligence level, when you're asking, like your contributors to contribute data as well. It can be like all sorts of data.
Yeah. So OpenLedger itself does not go ahead and ask for the data, right? It's the people who are building on that ask this data. And yes, you're right. So people have been like experimenting and playing around with various different ideas. I told you about the healthcare stuff. I told you about the programming language one. There are a couple of people who are working on unique use cases. Like there's a team which is collecting weather data, right? Just weather information from across the globe. They're building a model for that. So there could be like 100 different use cases where a common man can contribute, or only a skilled user can actually contribute that, or it could be an enterprise contributing for that, right? There could be like varied use cases, and OpenLedger is like a framework that brings all of these guys together.
I do have to ask you about like any kind of blockchain project, Web3 project in general, because I've seen the pattern over the years where let's say the idea itself is fantastic. I mean, I'm sure you guys already have a lot of traction of potential, like when you launch the mainnet or something like that, it's going to go crazy. But how do you solve this problem that I think is quite inherent in the Web3 space and crypto, which is the problem of speculation and, like they're just pumping stuff and then like, oh yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
Then like, it just goes
up
and then
crashes.
it just crashes. And all of a sudden, because I'm sure, none of us want to be known as a scam or something.
Yeah.
Like how do you prevent that from happening, no matter how much community power there is? Like I heard, I could be wrong, it is just not possible to prevent any speculation from whales, whatnot, or
Yeah. We can't do anything about it, right?
Okay, so,
but no, the idea behind this, I think, comes down to the team, right? What their intention is, like what they really want to build. If like, I think a lot of people, even like Vitalik spoke about this, that tokenization is something which is a good and bad thing that happened for crypto. It enables us to monetize a protocol and like have better economy flows, but also misleads the team into it's kind of like think about as a quick exit, which is bad. It comes down to the team and the founders and who are building this, who are the contributors, how they see this as a long-term thing, right? If you envision that you want to build a product which is a long-term, you would not do anything which is speculative, right? You would not encourage people to be speculative. It also, people are like very react to what you provide. If your protocol is speculative, what you build is speculative, they're going to speculate on that. But if they see something which is a long term, and there is actual use case of this, and they believe in this project, then probably they're going to buy a token and hold on to it, right? Because they know that, okay, I know this project will do well. So potentially the value of this token, because there's a lot of use cases, will do well as well. I'm going to hold on to that. But if they think it's a, it itself is a pump and dump game, they're going to pump and dump you as well. So it comes down to the founders, the intention, and what's the protocol building as well.
And the fact that you guys have been building this for so long,
Yeah,
and
yeah. So
you're
for
serious
us,
about this.
For us, it's more on like we want to make actual credible revenue, right? Because so we are so used to that, right? We did about $40 million in revenue when we were building our blockchain R&D team, and it still does that, right? We have a separate team running that, and
I'm surprised to hear that as a blockchain project, you have these like big clients that are paying you money. How do you do you guys have a separate sales team, or you do the sales yourself? Or
I travel across the globe. I meet a lot of people. I used to do that. So we focus on OpenLedger now. That's our biggest focus. So the team that runs that is basically, the idea behind this, right? A lot of people were saying like, why do you guys do this? Like, people are doing ICOs and making money. Why do you guys are building stuff? And like, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but we said like, we want to make revenue, right? We want to build a strong team.
That's a business.
That's a business, exactly, right? I want to be doing this for the next 10, 15 years of my life, right? I just want to just make quick buck and just run around. So I want to build a proper business where people can actually use it. People can actually build something out of it. And that's in our DNA. That's how we were brought up, right? So building a strong business which makes good revenue, which has people working in it happy about what they're doing is very important. We want to do that with OpenLedger. Like, we want to make sure that we build a strong firm out there which actually makes revenue. A protocol which actually makes constable revenue for the protocol. And
but that means that you have to serve, like you have to deliver value to especially these institutional clients.
I wouldn't just say institutions, right? Like, for example, we make revenue using enterprise right now. We are in testnet. We still work with enterprises. We build specialized AI models for them. They leverage our system to make their models much more explainable, because we do attribution, right? We go back and show which data is causing an output. So now they have a system which is open and auditable and transparent, right?
Interesting. So they're not just using ChatGPT, but they're actually doing this thing collaboration with you,
exactly,
so that they can see, oh, this is so much better than like using ChatGPT.
So I'll give you an example. There's a large e-commerce company which is working with us, and we're building an AI model for them, and we're building a customer support model which has data sets basically about customer support, like customer grievances. They provide us with this data. They also collected data with us, and then we built an AI model for them, and now it's going to go live. It's going to be used by the internal system first, and then it's going to be given out. And when this AI is being used, and when the AI goes ahead and gives them an output, there's an inference and then there's an output coming in. They want to make sure that it's entirely auditable. If an answer is given, they want to know which data caused that answer, right? Because if there's going to be a problem later on, something goes wrong, we could go ahead and figure out what went wrong, what data was biased.
I feel like even just hearing that, I feel like that's super valuable.
Yeah. So because think of enterprises, right? If they're going to use AI, then the entire system is going to be based on how that AI works. And if you don't know how it works, and if it's a black box, that's a big problem for these enterprises.
Which
right?
A lot of these closed models are right?
And that's one of the reasons they don't use OpenAI and all these closed systems, because they really don't know how it works.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons we are able to work with enterprises. We are able to, so other part of OpenLedger, apart from providing like this infra for the community to build AI models and then get rewarded, we work with enterprises to make these models explainable, make them more auditable. So enterprises can actually have an entire idea about which data is causing an output. Now, if something goes wrong, they can go back and see what it is. So that's something that we're really interested to work more on. So the other part, that makes a constable revenue for us. Right.
Like, I feel like it's like you don't even have to do anything else. Just do that, and then you'll make a ton of money as a business, right?
So, and then apart from that, the protocol will also start making revenue once we go mainnet, right? People will start to contribute data, AI models will be paid, When someone is building an AI model, they pay us a fee. When they make a revenue and they share that revenue with the data contributors, they may pay us a fee again. So there is a considerable protocol revenue that will be made. So we want to make sure that the entire protocol is sustainable on its own. So we're not like token dependent, right? It should not be that. The token is sort of like your representation of your company. People should own that. People should make revenue out of it, not the company, right? So that's very, kind of like long-term thinking mindset for us. We want to make sure that we can set an example so others can also do it. A lot of folks in the space were doing that, right? A lot of real good projects were actually doing that.
Yeah.
And
it's just that I haven't heard of many success cases because something always goes wrong.
Think of Ethereum, right? A lot of people don't talk about it, right? But Ethereum is one of the most sustainable ecosystems out there because it's just run by the people. And there is considerable revenue that's being generated within the protocol that's actually benefiting the people who are participating in the protocol. So if we can build a decentralized system like that, which is open and have anyone like contribute and get rewarded, and then the protocol generates revenue so that people can make money just being part of it, I think that's the best way to build a business, and that's what we want to focus on as well.
What is your core expertise, or like what kind of background do you come from that you're able to think at this level and then bring this type of value to effectively change the game when, we think that this whole centralized monopoly or like whatever is going to get worse and worse by the likes of OpenAI. But you're almost like, I feel like this could directly challenge their model. So like, what gives you the confidence that you can pull this off as the founder / core contributor?
I've been building like in the technology space over the last 10 years and like builds projects and firms which are like make actual value. So, and it just, when you're in the space, you tend to see like what can potentially happen and how can we solve that, right? And when we started building in the AI space about 2 years back, when like OpenLedger was an idea, we spoke to so many of them who are actually building in this space, right? And the model developers and people who are into AI. And what we kind of like really heard again and again is that AI that's being built today is good for what, for the next 2 to 3 years. But later on, this is going to change. People will go ahead and need for AI systems which are much more deeper than what it is today. We would start to see adoption much quicker than we would realize. And that's what happened, right? While we're talking to these people, that's when this ChatGPT moment was happening. It was one of the fastest apps that was downloaded and used by people. People got so used to AI that they didn't expect so much need, right? So, and then we also saw that there is so much need for data now being emerged from there. And we are seeing like early signs of that. And when we spoke to all of these developers and builders, what we kind of understood is that, okay, there is a need for data. Then it'll pass on from more on the internet to actual knowledge bases. Why don't we build a system that can bring these people together and they can monetize themselves and they can also reward the data contributors as part of it. And so that's from where we just spoke to a lot of people. We thought this would be something that was needed. We could have been wrong. There are many times I've been wrong on things that we do, but this one just turned out to be correct.
And how does your unique cultural background affect your decision making?
Grown up in a space where I've seen a lot of people around me who build businesses which are like sustainable and rewarding the ones who participated. And culturally, I think I come from a background where, I believe that people have to be paid for what's rightly theirs, right? I think that's what I love about Web3, right? It treats everyone very fairly. If you take a look at anyone who's in Web3, we've heard a lot of the rags to riches story because it's so open, it's so decentralized. Anyone can participate in it and they could make a living out of it and probably become rich. So I've seen that I like fairness. Basically, everyone has to be treated equally. That's one of the reasons why we are in the Web3 space, and that's one of the reasons why we thought this is probably the right way to do, to make sure that everyone gets fairly rewarded, and then we make them realize that you're getting rewarded, and this is why you're getting rewarded, right? You can verify it on the system. You don't have to trust Ram, you have to trust the product, you have to trust the code. So I think that just comes out of what we've seen, what we've learned as well.
Really sounds like a win-win for everybody. Like
Hopefully.
people get treated, compensated fairly, but as a result, the end users actually have a way better experience engaging with particular product or something like that.
Yeah. No, hopefully, what we build turns out to become something useful. I definitely believe so. A lot of people who are building with us, who've invested in us, a lot of people who are in the community also believe the same as well. And we would know that in the coming few months.
What should people know about you as far as your immediate plans, and where do you want things to be in, let's say, 2 to 3 years right now?
So we are launching the product soon. We're going mainnet probably in a few weeks. And we would want people to experiment and play around, learn more about AI, get to know the importance of that.
How important is that? Maybe you should really remind people, because people are still like, oh, I don't need AI.
Yeah. So like when internet happened, right, there was this realization that came quite late for us. A lot of people adopted to the internet quite late. A lot of organization went to zero because of that, right? A lot of brick and mortar business closed down because they could not adopt to internet, right? This happened in the PC era as well. So we've seen this happen twice, during the PC era and also during the internet era. So AI is going to be much bigger than that. So once we start to learn AI, instead of fearing that, we will start to adopt to that, right? We will start to learn to that. AI is going to create new jobs. It's going to kill a lot of jobs, but it's going to create a lot of new jobs as well. This happened again before, during the PC era and the internet era. So once we start to learn more about AI, we don't fear it. We get to adopt it, and we use it for our better good, right? So I think that's what needs to happen. People need to get educated about AI. People need to learn more about AI. That's one thing that I would say that people need to do, because we know how to have a similar episode like what happened during the internet. We want like better outcomes with AI, and the best way is to learn about it.
And lastly, what's sort of like the plan or roadmap for OpenLedger look like?
For the next 2 years, we would focus on building better foundation on the infrastructure. We would, there's a lot of things to learn, a lot of feedback we would get from the community, and people are building on us. The product that we have built is based on an assumption as what people want, but we would also might need to change a lot of stuff, right? So the next 2 years will be focused to build the infrastructure to be very strong, and then also encourage more and more people to build. We just announced a grant program. We've allocated close to about $25 million worth of grant and especially like $5 million worth of grant for the Korean community. So we would encourage more and more people to experiment and build on us. So that will be our biggest focus for the next 2 years. That's going to be that. Post that, AI changes a lot. So what we build now could be totally different in the next 2 years. So, but whatever it is, whatever AI artifact it turns out to become, we will focus on enabling decentralized resource contribution and getting people rewarded for that.
One thing I really appreciate as a last word is the fact that you're really trying to decentralize it on a global scale, so that you have a Korean community and you have a Chinese community, which I think is actually very different from the way typical Silicon Valley companies are building.
Yeah, we are building a product for the world. I think that's important, that you have community across the globe participating. That's the core essence of what we build.
Which you're thinking is like almost a necessity going forward, because AI is going to be so global.
So global.
That it can't just be Western-centric.
And our focus again is to have as much as decentralized resource contribution, like data contribution, for that the company has to be global. We have to be global. And our focus is always to build for the world and have anyone across the globe participate.
That sounds amazing, man. Yeah, thank you so much for your
time.
Thank you for the time. Look forward to seeing how OpenLedger develops, and then happy to
Great conversation.
try things out. Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.